Chile hit by tsunami, at least 2 dead and 300 prison inmates escape as 6-foot waves triggered by huge 8.2 magnitude quake cause chaos. Magnitude 8.2 quake struck at 8:46 p.m. Tuesday in the Pacific Ocean, near the town of Iquique. Chilean officials say 2 people died when the earthquake struck and several others are seriously injured. Tsunami warning was issued for large swathes of Latin America and remained in place into Wednesday. Waves of up to 6.9 feet high were reported in Iquique, where 300 inmates escaped from a women's prison amid the chaos. Coastal areas were evacuated by authorities immediately after the tremor struck. Families fled their homes and sought refuge in Iquique's city stadium. A powerful earthquake measuring 8.2 on the Richter scale struck off northern Chile Tuesday night, setting off a small tsunami that forced evacuations along the country's entire Pacific coast and much of Latin America. Chilean officials say 2 people died when the earthquake struck at 8:46 p.m. local time and several others are seriously injured. While it appears the area escaped major damage and casualties, landslides blocked roads, power failed for thousands, an airport was damaged and several businesses caught fire. About 300 inmates escaped from a women's prison in the city of Iquique, and officials said Chile's military was sending a plane load of special forces to guard against looting. In the city of Arica, 86 miles 139 kilometers from the quake's epicenter, hospitals were treating minor injuries, and some homes made of adobe were destroyed while 90% of customers were without power, authorities said. The quake also shook modern buildings in nearby Peru and in Bolivia's high-altitude capital of La Paz. Hours later, tsunami warnings or watches remained in effect for the coasts of Peru and Chile, the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center said. Shortly before midnight, Chile's emergency office said its tsunami watch would remain in effect for 6 more hours, meaning hundreds of thousands of people along the coast would not sleep in their beds. The U.S. Geological Survey initially reported the quake at 8.0, but later upgraded the magnitude. It said the quake struck 61 miles 99 kilometers northwest of Iquique at 8:46 p.m., hitting a region that has been rocked by numerous quakes over the past 2 weeks. Psychiatrist Ricardo Yevanese said he was with a patient in Arica when the quake hit. It quickly began to move the entire office, things were falling, he told local television. Almost the whole city is in darkness. The quake was so strong that the shaking experienced in Bolivia's capital about 290 miles 470 kilometers away was the equivalent of a 4.5 magnitude tremor, authorities there said. More than 10 strong aftershocks followed in the first few hours, including a 6.2 tremor. More aftershocks and even a larger quake could not be ruled out, said seismologist Mario Pardo at the University of Chile. Chilean Interior Minister Rodrigo Pinello said President Michelle Bachelet was closely watching the situation and was ready to take any measures to ensure people's safety. Hundreds of soldiers were being deployed in the quake zone, and a flight would be leaving soon with hundreds special forces on board, he added. We have taken action to ensure public order in the case of Iquique, where we've had a massive escape of more than 300 female prisoners from the Iquique jail, so that the armed forces and police can coordinate and provide tranquility and security to the residents, he said. Frightened residents in some towns posted videos and pictures on Twitter as they spilled out of their homes following the quake to head for safer areas inland. One woman, Javiera Mora Araya, who lives in the Chilean coastal city of Chinarol, tweeted an image of her neighbors fleeing their homes and heading into the streets after the tsunami warning was issued. Lengthy queues of traffic quickly formed as families headed inland, while others in Iquique took refuge in the city's stadium. Some roads in northern Chile were blocked by landslides, only exacerbating the jams among people leaving the coast. But coastal residents remained calm as they head inland while waves measuring almost 2 meters struck their cities. As well as damaged homes, pictured emerged of a burning restaurant and a partially destroyed church. The quake, which struck at around 8:26 p.m. local time, hit in an area that has been rocked by numerous quakes recently. It struck around 10 kilometers below the seabed, which would have made it feel stronger. Evacuations also were ordered in Peru, where waves 2 meters above normal forced about 200 people to leave the seaside town of Boca del Rio. But there were no injuries or major damage, said Colonel Enrique Blanco, the regional police chief in Tacna, a Peruvian city of 300,000 near the Chilean border. The lights went out briefly, but were re-established, Blanco said. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center said a warning was also in effect for Ecuador, while a tsunami watch was also in place for Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua and El Salvador. Sea level readings indicate a tsunami was generated, a statement said earlier. It may have been destructive along coasts near the earthquake epicenter and could also be a threat to more distant coasts. Authorities should take appropriate action in response to this possibility. This center will continue to monitor sea level data to determine the extent and severity of the threat. Police officer Alejandro Rosado in Tacna, a Peruvian town near the coast, said no damage or injuries had been reported there. Chile is one of the world's most earthquake-prone countries because just off the coast, the Nazca tectonic plate plunges beneath the South American plate, pushing the towering Andes Cordillera to ever higher altitudes. The latest activity began with a strong magnitude 6.7 quake on March 16 that caused more than 100,000 people to briefly evacuate low-lying areas. Hundreds of smaller quakes followed in the weeks since, keeping people on edge as scientists said there was no way to tell if the unusual string of tremors was a harbinger of an impending disaster.